All right. Episode 0 of the Radial Ventures podcast. I'm here with the four men who've comprised the leadership team of Radial Ventures, plus me. That's 5. That's a full hockey squad, 3 forwards and 2 defensemen. So yeah, we're rolling them out. So really excited to launch this podcast, which will focus on transformative software and its relationship to company building, and some of the best and brightest thinkers on that subject in Buffalo and across the country. So I'm joined here today with the Radial team, Dan Maniszewski, the CEO of Radial Ventures, Mike Canzaneri, the CTO, and Jonathan Gorska and Nick Baroni, the vice presidents of product and design. What's up, guys?
Howdy.
Yeah.
Hey, happy to
Happy to be inside. It's a little nippy outside of
-3
Buffalo.
this morning.
Right. But we keep warm by building great companies, right?
Rice is rice, exactly right. Bitcoin miners.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
we have
right.
a long line of Bitcoin miners in the basement
Nice.
warming your house from below.
So listen, these are going to be roundtable discussions, topical discussions that we're going to host on a regular basis to give people some insight into the fast moving world of AI and software. These guys are well positioned to as people who build companies and who keep their finger on the pulse of how fast that world is moving, really provide insight into the rapid evolution because things don't ever stay still anymore. And so I want to start it off with Dan, DJ Danny Rayban over here, the CEO of Radial and the co-founder and former CTO of very successful company ACV Auctions. Dan, let's talk about AI. When anybody can build a company these days, tell me about what differentiates success from not being able to scale. What are the levers for a successful startup
Sure.
in today's world?
Yeah, so I mean, this is something I think we don't fully know, and it's evolving as we're going through. I think, the interesting part is, as I've been talking to VCs and even doing some pitching and having been pitched myself, it's becoming very interesting where the development is really down to almost zero in terms of anyone who can type into words into a computer can now code and build products and build demos. And, I think there's starting to be this, perceived competition out there where, anyone has an idea that can spin something up overnight, put a website up, have some login, do a blog post, have AI generated, people talking about their product and referrals and things like that, and have the perception of a company in, maybe a matter of hours or a day, where traditionally it would take, months of time, a team of people, all this stuff. So what, through the traditional lens looks like, oh, this is a real company. There's a lot of stuff going on behind it. The reality could be is like, oh yeah, I just whipped this up and threw it up and I kind of forgot about it and went on to the next thing. Or it's like, hey, I'm going to pitch investors and try to get money to go do this thing. But it's really just, the thought process has gone through in terms of, hey, here's this product, I built it, now it's a company. When, where I think the differentiation is and where I'm viewing it right now is really along, what are you doing in terms of distribution, partnerships, obviously traction. Are they paying, what's the stickiness for us? We love more of what's being termed the built world, where there's AI technology meeting the physical world. And in that perspective, you actually have to go talk to people and interface with humans and go get them to use the product and understand it. And so there's still a little bit more friction there. And so it's, how are you perceiving that distribution? What are those partnerships? What's the unfair advantage you have? Obviously, you can leverage all the tools, but so can everyone else, from online tools and technical tools. But how are you getting that product out there in the hands of people, and what are the responses, right? And so I think, from my perspective, trying to figure that out, I think it's evolving, and I think there's, a lot to be learned. You look at some of these lovable, the lovables of the world where, um, it's all online, it's all technical, people can sign up, so you can get these massive growth rates. But the issue is, there's a ton of them, right? And how are you differentiating, and how is the next foundational model not just going to come along and wipe you out? So for me, it's looking at a lot of that stuff because VCs and you're going out and pitching, or even consumers. I think there's going to start being a fatigue where traditionally there may have been 2 to 5 competitors in a market. Now we're sitting here and there could be 500 to 1,000 competitors, right, in any market, and that kind of goes back to that perceived competition. How much actual competition is there, but is everyone fatigued enough to where you may come along and look like the same thing, like, oh yeah, I've seen 100 of these already. Like, well, no, but we actually have customers and they're paying, and here's how we're positioning ourselves in the market, and here's our traction. So I think that's the way you got to look at standing out in a world where everyone's building products all the time.
I know, like in a lot of ways, the bar is getting super low to produce, but then it's also getting really high to execute, right? In a world where an app is not a company, and that's still true, right? The part where you need to make it a company is going to continue to get harder and harder. And that's what we see, right? They're like, as a studio, the thing that impacts us is we'll go talk to other VCs about things that are going on in our studio. And their response to us will be like, hey, I've seen 10 of these, right? Or we're seeing a lot of these in this category. But they're not all the same, right? It's a lot of paper dragons. And so what's the execution look like? And it's important for folks like us to actually show up with a little bit more of the business put together.
Hey, Mike, let's stop there. Who and what is us? What is Radial Ventures?
Yeah, so Radial Venture, we're a venture studio. It's I guess, a newer and emergent type of either economic development or business format. But essentially, it's taking the best of the venture capital world and being able to put resources into companies to help them grow. It's taking the models of incubators and accelerators and being able to take ideas and take early emerging companies and put a bunch of resources around it and help it grow. The venture studio is really in between. There's a lot of different flavors of venture studios. Our venture studio is what I like to call a full service, in terms of we have a fully cross-functional team on staff. Our goal is to look for ideas and maybe prototype stage companies, and be able to put that into basically a system that we like to think of ourselves as a factory that creates companies, right? So if you put an idea in, we go through the vetting process. We make sure the market's there. We make sure the customers are there. We're talking with a ton of customers. We're building the initial product. We're helping take it to market. We're doing customer discovery calls and understanding as we're going. We're learning more about the market and rolling that back into the product, or maybe some of the messaging and positioning of that company. But the goal is that we're able to systematically and very quickly get an idea through the process of idea all the way through to MVP and say, hey, we have customers. We know how to take it to market. We have distribution. We understand how we sell this. Now let's go raise capital. Let's go build it out. So at that point, once we have enough traction, our goal is to build that team. And so we'll go raise capital. We'll build out the team that, needs to go kind of run it, and we spin it out, and the company runs on its own. Maybe some people will go along with that company and want to ride the whole race. Others will want to fall back and go work on the next idea. So for us, it's a way that you can systematically build companies faster and de-risk that process along the way.
Awesome. All right, this is some real episode zero shit here, but I should probably introduce myself too. So my name is Dan Miner, and I run the Series B media platform, which tells the story of progress and momentum in high growth innovation in Buffalo, New York. SeriesBuffalo.com, SERIES, Buffalo.com. If anybody's listening and interested to read more about the great things that are going on. Jonathan and Nick, you guys have been building startups for a long time. Talk to us about how AI is changing the world and how that changes your job.
Well, one thing, it makes it a lot faster, as Dan sort of talked about. I think so everyone's mentioned vibe coding platforms a bunch already, Lovable or Replit. Uh, for those who don't know, those are, essentially a website where you can write a few prompts and it starts to build an application for you or software. So I think we leverage these tools to start and to learn from. I think when you look at the changes, it has made it so that in the past, a founder or someone with an idea would hire a team or a company to go build something. and now they can do it and have it running in minutes, or at least a version of it running in minutes. So I think when we see that, what's changed for us is that folks that are they're gonna go do this, but they're not gonna necessarily build something that is they might build something that's useful, but it's gonna be bloated and have a lot in it, and it might be lacking, the taste that makes it a company that works long term. So that's where we're trying to like thread that needle of, okay, what should be built, not just can it be built? Because the answer to can it be built is almost entirely yes. And AI definitely pretends like it's yes and just tries to do it. So it is that like scaling back and treating it the same way we did in the past, where it would just take a lot longer. So like speed has really become the the factor and the benefit here. But it also, as everyone's mentioned, creates now there's 1,000 competitors and you're trying to differentiate in different ways. And really distribution is probably the differentiator that matters the most. So, I mean, that's a lot of it. I don't know. Do you have more that
I feel like, and Jonathan, maybe you can add more color to this. What I feel like what I'm hearing is that development happens at the speed of light relative to the way it did even a couple of years ago. But finding product market fit might happen slower, or maybe even more difficult. Those sort of like the ratio of of the startup sequence,
Yeah, a
and the
lot of
pace.
the business fundamentals are still at play, and you can't forget about those things. You have to be close to the customer always, right? You can't just go unnecessarily build and like Nicholas said, build a lot and build wide across these workflows. You have to keep it simple. And when the cost of creating the technology solution is really low and fast and cheap, and you can just put natural language into something and get features out, that's not necessarily a good thing. In fact, it'll work against you because you're now creating a bloated marketing message and harder workflows or many different workflows. Keeping it simple and to what Nicholas said, like knowing what you should build, not just what you can build, is really, really important. That's where, taste and a reduction mindset helps you get to simple, powerful things that'll actually help people instead of just building, 25, 50 features and saying, here you go, customer, figure it out. You still have to get close to the customer. You have to find the customer. You have to understand what they need, right? Before you're actually changing their behavior with the software you're going to provide them.
And what I'd probably correct, I don't think it's necessarily harder to get to that MVP and get traction and get customers. I think it's just there's a new element of, a lot of noise in the market, but I still believe that with the tooling that exists, not having to go out and pitch based on wireframes or pitching customers with kind of a half working demo, you can have legitimate product that you can put in their hands that they can use that they may think is real fully functioning and all that good stuff, and it is, and so you're getting that real time feedback, and now you're getting it way earlier. So from that perspective, I think you can definitely get to MVP quicker with the AI tooling and all the other stuff going on, much higher quality feedback, and that helps kind of determine what are the initial features and requirements that need to go into this release. But you're able to iterate in real time, where in the traditional model, it would be, okay, we're out pitching, you have designers working on wireframes, you're figuring it out, and you start in low fidelity, and then you like that, and then you go to a higher fidelity, and you go through and you tweak that, and then like, okay, we can, maybe do a little bit of like prototyping, or there was different apps that allowed you to simulate an app working, but you had to just click certain areas, where now that's all compressed into the early stage and it's all real, right? And so all that ease and all that compression is why you're seeing, a lot more noise in the market. But I think if, you're solving the right problem and you have the right idea how to get it to the market, then similar to, as we were saying, traditional business methods, like they're still at play, and you can move a lot quicker than you could have, even a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and you touched on this idea, Dan, of kind of having perseverance through it all. If you could just create an app in a day, you still have a lot of work to do to bring that to market and make it valuable for someone. And we're seeing people just become distracted, right? And build an app and say, okay, now I get to the hard part. Okay, I'm going to go build another app. So you see a lot of this competition or faux competition, but the folks who are really staying and showing results are those who kind of put their heads down and are really passionate about a problem, continue to go solve it, even when they hit those next harder blockers and not just jumping the next app they can vibe code and build.
Cans, I cut you off earlier. Log back in here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I said before, right? Like and Dan mentioned the noise in the market. For all these things, that's going to be the challenge, right? That anybody's going to be able to make an app for just about anything, right? And we've very much crossed a threshold in towards the end of January. I'm sorry, the end of December into January, where there's a bit of a step up in capability of the AI models, their ability to plan and their ability to execute well on building apps. And we're only at the beginning of the year here, right? And so if you think back 12 months ago, right, what we had was almost nothing. It was incredible then, but almost nothing compared to what we have now. But 12 months from now, it's going to be vastly better. And so it really comes down to the rest of that business execution. You know, are you able to get good customers? Are you able to get the real problem solved? Are you able to do it effectively? And just building the app and shipping it isn't going to be the differentiator anymore, because that engineering capability. I say this as somebody who has 25 years of software engineering, like so many folks out there. Like, I've spent the tens of thousands of hours behind the machine learning how to use Linux and all the things that go behind the systems engineering and release engineering and everything else. All that stuff is going the same direction the compilers went, the assembly code went, that soldering chips on the board went, right? We're not going to be doing that stuff anymore if we're in the world of building startups and bringing solutions to the market. So
I mean, I love
you need to
what
be
you're
okay
saying.
with that.
It's a complete change. Where we've spent our careers over the past 2 decades have been about making static images that look like UI for products and writing code manually. And one of the great things about Radial is we're embracing that change, and we're trying to ride the cutting edge wave, where we see a lot of folks pushing back and saying, this isn't the way, or it might take my job or take tasks out of my job, being into that. And that gives us an incredible power. And it takes a lot of the ego out of the room to spend decades working on something, manually writing code, manually making, UI, and now saying, okay, we're going to use these new tools. And designers and product people should actually be, vibe coding or agentically building software right out of the gate. Even when Nicholas and I are in these design files, we kind of ask ourselves, like, well, what are we doing? Right? Why are we making static images? And to what Dan said, right, those tools got better over time. We would make static images, then prototyping tools came along and you could click around, and now you could just build real software just as quick. So there's no need for that low fidelity or static prototyping tools, because the time to learn is shortened by the things in our toolbox now.
And I think stuff I'm hearing and seeing, even over models that came out over the past couple of months, I think there was the elite software engineers out there that viewed it as good. It was good as a junior, maybe an intermediate, but it's not as good as, a 10x programmer. And now you're starting to see people like Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, and others who are maybe the last people that would bow to the robot overlords, that are now admitting, like, holy shit, like this is better than humans now. And it makes me, go from a great programmer to an exceptionally great programmer, right? And so there's still, there's always that, that extra space to improve. And I think it's more just traditional, like, computers are easy, people are hard. It's going to be really difficult for some people to make that shift and, somewhat admit defeat. But the reality is, that time has come, and those who don't are going to be left behind. So.
We absolutely need to do a future episode about what people should be learning as they prepare to enter the world of software and innovation and technology. If the computers have taken
We're
software
definitely
engineering.
beginning to form opinions on that, across all the age levels, right? Like, as it pertains to some of the 43 North's Foundation mission around K through 12, or K to Grave even. We're definitely deep enough into this wave now that there's some opinions that I think are going to stand up a little bit and be true for 6 to 12 to 24 months as they
Yeah,
move forward.
this sounds fun. Sounds fun. Listen, let's wrap it up here with Nick. Nick, you have a real world example. You're building or testing a software company in the media space. Like, what does all this mean when you're actually getting your hands into an actual startup company, and how does it look and feel? All these changes.
So yeah, so what you're talking about is an idea we're validating called Story Scout, where we're trying to build, journalist tools for journalists that can automate a lot of the process for, finding story ideas, finding leads, things like that. So I think what we're seeing as we do it is that, so like this would be something that'd be very hard to vibe code today, but I think in the future that'll change. But it's important that companies are leveling up to solve a harder problem than a data in, data out problem. So I think when you look at companies like, we'll just say like project management software, that is a very easy thing to replicate in a tool, and you could customize that now. So you can imagine people employing custom built software that they build themselves for themselves. I need a project management tool that does X, Y, and Z. The code writes it, it does it for you, and it's hosted somewhere, and you pay that platform. Whereas what we're trying to do is, learn what journalists, how they work, what they need, and then, build AI automation tools that augment that work. So, it's a lot. The tools make it a lot easier for us to learn quickly, but it is now figuring out like, what are those little things that make something special? What are like the habits of someone in this space, in like the journalism space, that where they look for things so that we can start to like train and build tools that do that for them. So, I think, you obviously have a lot of input that's been really helpful on that. There's some others. It comes back to just knowing, okay, everything we wanted to build so far, we've been able to. It's really though, like, is it useful? Like, is it going to find the thing that you need?
I think the thing I like with this is, you're looking at an industry where, the number of people employed has gone way down. The roles have disappeared. The budgets have shrunken. And how do you now leverage this tooling to ensure that this industry can still perform, do its job, like do all of those things it used to do with a staff of 1,000 can now do it with a staff of 10, right? And it's shrinking down to a staff of 10 anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, so these are the types of tools that can allow journalism to continue to grow and thrive and not kind of whittle away. And so I think those are really interesting areas as you're looking at the application of it. It's not really removing jobs because those jobs are already gone, but now it's making those 10 people 100 times better.
And then from a venture studio perspective, that's actually interesting too, because now we're looking at, instead of looking at things that have infinite growth, we're actually looking at what is compressed and what can then actually benefit those audiences. So it is like an inverted triangle to a degree of opportunity, but like that opportunity didn't exist 30 years ago. And part of it was technology, but also like the people were employed and there was enough ad dollars in the space that you didn't need to solve these problems yet. And now all of a sudden, we do, because, like Dan's saying, there's also just the importance of having quality journalism, especially at the local level where it's, kind of struggling the most. So can technology come in and help solve that problem, is what we're trying to learn. And so far it's been pretty good. And we've been able to see some progress and see this thing work. And now we need to like expand it, because there's all different types of journalists that look for all different types of sources and information. And you just have to start to like run them down and pick each one. So we're solving a slightly bigger problem than in, data out. And that's really, I think, one of the key things when we're looking at AI-based startups. They are, AI isn't deterministic. If you want to build something that's very deterministic, it's not, isn't really, that's too easy. You're going to get eaten by some other tool or something else. So yeah.
I didn't plan this, but I love ending our first episode on saving journalism. That's near dear to me. Hey guys, if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur that works with you, an investor that looks at your companies, or friend of the family, how do they find you?
Yeah, sites radialventures.com. We have a way to, submit your ideas, and, we run that through our internal validation, and, look at those ideas and talk to the entrepreneurs that are bringing those ideas. That's how we're looking to bring it in. So radialventures.com. We're also on the social medias. We need to be a little bit more active, but
Socials.
we are out there on all the social medias.
And this is the beginning of that, right? So hopefully, if this isn't absolutely horrible, or even maybe if it is, we'll put it out there, see what people think.
This was absolutely fucking awesome.
We want
I
to
think
know what
that's-
people we want to know what people want, right? So we don't even know who our audience really is yet, right? We're just firing this out there. So if you're listening to this and you want to hear more, like, we want to hear what you want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly if you're someone with industry expertise who has really felt the problem that you've lived maybe for a decade or more, come talk to us, right? This is a great opportunity to have a really strong, experienced team around you to help make your idea a reality.
Good stuff, guys. Till next time.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
That's the pod.
Okay.
We weren't recording this whole time.
I should have pointed out that
From the top.
do it again. Right. This time the host will remember to introduce himself. I
All right, what do we think?
think we found our rhythm.